Hi, I'm Farmer Gill, and welcome to our Farmcast. We're going to be talking to Matt Stiles from Eckert's Corn Stand. Matt is born and raised in Medford, New Jersey, and we're pumped to talk to him about farming.
All right, this is awesome. Well, Matt, thanks for coming. Chris and I were just talking about how it's kind of crazy we convinced you to get off the farm. I feel like the furthest you normally get off the farm is at your farm stand.
Yeah, takes a while to drive a tractor.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, yeah, I know I kind of told you like a million times through text and whatever why we're doing this, but we really want to, talk about farming with farmers. A lot of times, in the media, social media, stuff like that, a lot of people are talking about farming. They're giving their opinion about it. And we don't really want to, give opinions anymore. We want to kind of give facts, introduce people who farm in our community, and just talk about how you do what you do.
Yeah. So, especially for me, coming from outside farming, I easily fall into the outside view of kind of romanticized farming or kind of idealized farming. So, yeah, what would you say, Matt? Or what are your thoughts around sort of this idealized view of farming today?
I think people, like you said, romanticize it. I think it's this like awesome, easy lifestyle when it's really the furthest. It's ridiculous hours, lots of stress.
So, how did you get into farming? Because you didn't grow up on a farm.
Nope,
correct?
Didn't grow up on a farm.
So talk about that whole journey of how you got there, because I know my upbringing and yours probably, as far as where we grow up location wise, couldn't have been more different.
Yeah, so went to college, got a degree in environmental science. Went worked for an environmental consulting company for a year. Um, Ended up working for a nuclear engineering company, and that was cool, but it was a ton of travel, and I didn't like it. My brother wanted to start a construction company together, so we did that. He got married and moved away, so then I was kind of like gonna do what I want to do,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of what started it. I worked for a winery for a while,
What winery did you work for?
Cape May Wine,
Okay, that's cool.
and then ended up working at the cranberry bogs, and then from there, I got my own farm, started doing some hay, and then kind of moved into vegetables.
So, was there any farming in your family prior to you?
I guess kind of, but not that I was ever involved with.
Yeah. Who was not your dad, right?
No, no, not my dad.
So who was who what grandparents involved in farming at all or
So it would be my mom, yeah, my grandfather, but it was my mom's stepdad.
gotcha. So where did this kind of urge or this desire to farm arise from? Do you know or have you ever thought about that?
So when I was in college, I was buying tractors, fixing them up, working for a couple different farms, and I just kind of liked it. I liked working on things. I liked when I would fix tractors, I'd go get jobs with them. I used to like grade driveways and all sorts of stuff like
Yeah.
that, like little jobs. I used to plow gardens for people.
Like, what was the first tractor you bought?
First one was a Massey Harris 50.
Do you still have it?
Yeah,
Nice. So, like, what was it about tractors that you wanted to get into? Like, you just
I
liked
just
it?
liked it. I
Yeah.
don't know. I always liked working on them. Now, probably not as much because now when something breaks, it's like critical.
It's not a
like,
hobby anymore.
yeah, it's a whole different level now. But yeah, like working on things, fixing things. Like the Massey Harris, that was a 1955. Like totally redid that whole thing.
Wow.
I've had Farmalls, bunch of John Deeres. So I don't know. It's just kind of fun. It was fun. It still is fun, but it's just different.
Yeah. Yeah. So, tell us about your business. So, you got the farm in Tabernacle there. You got your road stand on Route 70. Um, talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we do um, pretty much all retail vegetables and then hay and straw. Um, Sweet corn, tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, onions, garlic, cucumbers, squash. I don't know. lettuce, spinach.
So, okay, let's talk about that because I think, when I explain to a lot of people about we call it like our farm plan for the year, where everything goes, crop rotation, stuff like that. I think that's something that people find so interesting and they may not think about like how that goes into play. So talk to me when do you start your farm plan? How does that whole process work for you?
So I would say like my plan's always evolving.
Mm-hmm.
It starts before the season prior ends. We're planning everything, what we're gonna do, what we're gonna do different, and pretty much like right now we've had a bunch of rain, so everything's wet. So I'm kind of having to shift things around. A little behind on planting, but
Mm-hmm.
it yeah.
So, what are some of the considerations when you kind of come up with this plan or you make switches kind of mid year? What are some of the things you have to think through? Weather is obviously one, right? But
Yeah,
other
weather's
things.
huge because it's like, everything grows differently. And so, like, when you have a bunch of hot days, things will grow faster. You have a bunch of cold, wet weather, things will slow down. So it changes. So, like, when you're trying to have a steady product all year round or your whole growing season, you have to kind of shift to,
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, for here, when we go through our farm plan, because yeah, I totally agree with you. You start or you never actually finish it
Yeah.
because it's always changing.
Yeah.
I remember my grandma used to say like the farm was like her favorite canvas because it always changes. You can always plow it under, start again, and what it looks like this time of year compared in fall. It's always changing. One of the things for us is like our soil here is pretty sandy, and like on one side of our farm is different than the other. Is that the same case on your piece of property?
yeah, absolutely. And then I have another property too that's like extremely sandy. And I
Yeah.
put all my early stuff there because everything drains real well. It's
Mm-hmm.
nice.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I talked to some people showing pictures and here at our farm in Medford, people say it's like we're farming on a beach.
Yeah.
So, Matt, I wanted to ask you. So, you worked on a couple farms prior to starting your
Yep.
own. So, what was the decision like when you decided to start your own operation? What went into that? What emotionally, what did that feel like? And then, first day operating, what was that like?
So I guess like all along I was doing something on my own. So like when I worked these other jobs, I was always still doing my own like
Gotcha.
farming, not on the scale that I am now, but I was still doing something. Even when I was working at the cranberry bogs, I was still doing hay.
Gotcha.
And it kind of all overlapped. So eventually it was like I had too much work. Like it just wasn't possible. Like
Yeah.
there's not enough time in the day. And so it was kind of like a necessity to switch to my own.
Mhm.
Yeah, that must have been. I mean, were you scared to go out on your own? I mean, it's just like a big undertaking.
Yeah.
For me, like our pathways into farming were different. Like for me, I could see the path. Like growing up, watching my dad do what he does, like I knew a lot of what I was getting into, but like I'm putting myself in your shoes and like that is scary.
I think what we figured was my wife and we were young enough where if it failed, like we had to borrow a ton of money to do it, but we were young enough that if we failed, we could still sell everything
Mm-hmm.
and at least break even, or maybe we'd make some money. I mean, so that was kind of why we were like okay with it. But
Yeah.
it was definitely. I mean, still, it's kind of scary when you think about it, but
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, tons of respect for doing that. So like what would you tell someone, who came, someone came into your stand, you're there and they're like, "Hey, I want to get into farming." What would you tell them?
So I think that the hardest thing for me was when I tried to do it, people were like, "Don't do it." Like so many people that you wouldn't even expect to say that would tell me not to do it. It wasn't a good idea, and I would tell someone like, "Do it, go for it," but go work for a farm. If it's the kind of farm you want to do, that's great, but go work for any farm. I feel like I'm like well rounded. I've worked for a bunch of different farms at this point, from like beef farms to grain farms. I kind of know my way around a lot of different types of equipment, and I just think getting that experience, like working other places, is definitely worth it. And then when you're trying to do it on your own, like do both. Like don't try to just jump into 100% yourself right away. Like kind of do both.
Yeah, I think, when Chris touched on this as far as like the decision making process, and because I think, yeah, working for a farm is great. And like you said, it doesn't even have to be like the exact place you want to work. But I think, just being able to learn what the decision making process is, learning that, like, you have to constantly plan for the future. And then like your whole plan can blow up in your face if you get a random rainstorm comes through and you get 4 inches of rain in 30 minutes. That's a big deal. I mean, for us, that, certain time of year that could wipe out our entire pumpkin crop. And then we got to bob and weave and figure some stuff out. But I think, just learning that process of having a plan, but having like a plan B, plan C, and then, if everything blows up, you still gotta figure out what you're doing.
So I want to ask you kind of two-part question. I'll do the first part. But right, a lot of your learning about farming and agriculture was through working, right? So who were kind of your mentors or those you learned from most as you were going through that?
That's a hard question. I wouldn't say that there was like one place that I learned everything from.
Mhm.
So we were lucky that we found like the farm that we have now, the people we bought it from, he was ready to retire, and he kind of took me under his wing and taught me a whole bunch of stuff, like, and that was just huge. And still to this day, like I call him with questions, helps me out a lot.
And who's that?
Lester Eckert.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, to have like just someone you can lean on like that and all the knowledge. Cause like, there are things here at our farm, like I could never just like, you can't even like tell someone. You have to like show them how to do it, show them where it is, certain aspects like that. So that's cool that you have someone like that to lean on, even if like you may not even need them, just to know they're there has to make you feel good.
Yeah. I think that the other thing is like there's enough. I feel like in the past, farmers kind of all like didn't like each other and didn't get along and kind of were like each other's competition. And I feel like now like that's changing. Like
Absolutely.
there's probably like 8 different farmers that like ask questions to when I am like not sure what to do. It probably actually is more than that. And they'll all answer the phone. They'll all tell me their honest opinion. Like I feel like we're all kind of at a point now where we realize like we're not competing with each other. It's more of like competition like globally, which is crazy when you think about it, like small farm.
Yeah, it's when I was like talking to my dad about like doing this podcast and this interviews, and we were going back and forth, and he was just like, we have gotten to where we are as a business from doing what you're saying, from collaborating, from asking questions to other people and sharing what we've learned to other people. Because I remember growing up, like my grandpa's generation, it was kind of cutthroat back then.
Yeah.
A lot of them grew the same thing and were selling to the same people. So like I kind of understand where that came from. But now, as me and you were coming up, like it's awesome. The community we have is so cool. And like even like the relationship me and you have, like I talk to you on the phone more than I talk to my wife on the phone. It's funny. I don't even have to like go find your name in my contacts. You're always in like my last 10 calls. So and it's cool that we can do that because me and you, we probably are the biggest sweet corn sellers in town here, and our customers would think we're mortal enemies.
For sure.
And you are one of my really good friends, and we just have like so much respect for each other, and I think it's cool. And like just the other day, there was a farm who's kind of in direct competition with us for tulips, and I called them out of the blue, and they answered the phone, and we talked forever, and we exchanged numbers, and they're helping me out with a couple questions I have, and yeah, there's this whole like change of feeling of we're all in this together, and I think a lot of that has to do with like the challenges, and like certain things that happen, customer trends, stuff like that, and even though these people are technically our competition, like we can relate to them more than anybody.
Yeah.
Because of what we go through, and how we sell our product, and dealing with the general public. There's only
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
so many, there's always a certain people that know
Yeah.
what that's like.
Like from the outside, as I was getting more involved here, and I would hear or see Gil on the phone with someone, then he'd be like, "Yeah, I was talking to Matt Stiles." I'd be like, "Who Matt Stiles?" He's like, "Oh, he owns the corn stand. What, 4 miles down the
Yeah.
road, 5
Yeah,
miles
yeah.
down the road?" We're kind of growing the pie as a whole, and as we do that, our shares get larger, and customers get a better and better experience. So it's neat.
Matt, you're the president of
Yes.
the Board of Ag.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't even know what the Board of Agriculture is. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Kind of like shed light on, the group of farmers that meets on the third Thursday of every month?
Yeah. So I guess we're kind of like an advisory board for the county and the state as well to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
And we discuss issues in agriculture in our area as well as the state. We talk about, what potentially could be coming down the line. What's happening with politics, how that affects agriculture. Has a huge play on agriculture. A lot of people don't really realize it. They think like we just go get our seeds and put it in the ground, but
Yeah.
the government's there telling us like all sorts of stuff we have to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's my dad was on the Board of Ag. He was the president for a while too, and when I first joined, and he was kind of explaining it to me, because I like from like far away view of it, you're like what's the point of it? The meetings are at an inconvenient time, and he was saying like we're like the first line of defense for farming issues, because we at the Board of Ag, we hear about it. We're one of the first farmers to hear about certain things coming down the line, and farming, some of these certain regulations, laws that get passed, they affect farming, like you were saying, tremendously. But because there's less and less farmers around, like that just means the ones that are left have to be louder and louder and make a big deal out of things. So, the Board of Ag is extremely important for that, because if we weren't passionate about it, we'd hear about these things and go out and throw our seeds in the ground, and we'd be on to the next thing. So, the Board of Ag is cool, and it's also like I think one of the best things I've gotten out of it is just like my relationships I've built with people. And the age of the board from when I first got there, the median age was probably like over 60, and now it's probably like
30s.
in the 30s.
Yeah,
we're
maybe 40s. Huh? But I think the other thing too that's really cool about the county board is it's like a huge like group of people that are extremely knowledgeable in very many different aspects of agriculture. And I mean, I personally have called on a bunch of those people to help me and answer questions for me, and it's been tremendous. I mean, I don't think I could have even gotten to where I've gotten without the help of the people on the board or involved with it, because of the connections I've made with them.
Yeah. One of everyone's favorites on the board is Roger Kumpel. I mean, that guy is so passionate about farming, and I hope to get him on the show one time too. I think
That'd be great.
that episode may be like 12 hours long.
Yeah.
It'd be
So
amazing.
buckle up. We're having breakfast, lunch, and dinner on the show, because he knows everything about everything when it comes to farming. So yeah, the Board of Ag's great. But
So yeah, Matt, you mentioned this idealized view of farming. A lot of people think it's like planting a seed in the ground and then you're staring at the land and watching it grow, right? But you mentioned there's a political aspect, right, with the Board of Ag, right? What other kind of disciplines or areas of thinking have you kind of had to learn about or explore that you might not have realized was part of farming, or our listeners might not realize is part of farming?
Yeah, well, I mean, it kind of all plays a part. It's hard to kind of pinpoint one or two things, because there's we just have so much stuff going on. Like, people don't realize like to grow sweet corn, you guys would know. Like, I plant corn every 3 days in order to have it throughout the entire summer.
Mhm.
So like you can't. So many people come in, they're like, oh yeah, you just you plant corn and you pick it all summer long, and I'm like, you got like a 5-day window max in the field to pick that, and if it's 100 degrees out, you got maybe 2 days, and that's done. Whatever you don't go through is trash, and a lot of people don't realize how much like I don't know, variable there is in all that, and it makes it hard to kind of plan.
Yeah. Yeah. The, what was it? Succession planting.
Yep.
So yeah, a lot of people think, let's say you're growing 20 acres of corn, you just plant 20 acres of corn and then you just pick it when you need to
Yeah.
get to it. But with corn, you got to plant it in blocks, and you got to plan out, okay, when is this going to hit? So like, for instance, like 4th of July is a big corn weekend, so that's going to be a big block, and then you kind of dial it back. Early August ramps up for Labor Day. So, and then you get rain, you get bad weather, that whole plan will
Yeah.
blow up in your face. And sweet corn's tough like that, because what you were saying, the window that you have to pick it and to get it to your customer and for them to get it on their dinner table and have it still taste good is so small.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
tiny.
and the same could be said for like tomatoes. Tomatoes
Mhm.
I grow a lot of tomatoes, and they're, we don't pick those. My first year is the biggest mistake I ever made. We got out there at like 6 in the morning and picked tomatoes. 3 days later, the whole field was dead.
Yep.
Because we went through, we touched all the wet plants, and we took disease from one plant to the next, and literally they all died.
Wow.
Big mistake.
Crazy.
Never do that again. So now everyone that works for him, like, all right, we're gonna pick at afternoon only.
Yeah.
Wait
until
or
it's
if
dry.
it's real hot, we'll wait till like 3 o'clock, or
Oh, that's crazy.
But-
So, like other areas as well. I mean, essentially, I think what a lot of people don't realize is that you're not just a farmer, right? You're an entrepreneur,
Oh yeah.
right? So you're fixing things. You're doing this. You're doing the science and agricultural science, but then you're also running a farm stand,
Yeah.
right? You're
Yep.
also you need to focus on hospitality and point of sales.
Yeah.
So how was, as you kind of got up and running there, was that something you were looking forward to, or was it something, you wish you didn't have to do, or?
So my wife would say 100% doesn't like it. And I agree, but yeah, it's hard. That's like a whole, so like, it would be so easy to farm and not have to worry about the market, and it'd be so easy to have a market and not have to worry about farming.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I could just go buy everything and bring it in and then
Yeah.
resell it, it's just be like great.
Yeah.
But having to do both means that I end up having to work till 2 or 3 in the morning to be able to do all my farm work that I can't do during the day when I'm like dealing with the farm market.
Mhm.
And luckily my wife does a whole lot of it. We do have 2 kids though, so that just makes it crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, talk about your family a little bit. Your wife, I know she's super involved in the stand. I mean, every time I've gone to your stand, she's there, and
Yep.
at least one of your kids is there with her.
Yeah.
So yeah, how is she involved in the business?
So she helps. We do like all of our planning we do together, except for like some stuff. Like today I got like 50 chickens. She didn't know about that. But for the most part, we do everything together. All the planning, and like she kind of knows what we're doing. When we're trying to pick new varieties, especially for like tomatoes and peppers, I always try to throw in a few. Like we have like our staples that we grow.
Mm-hmm.
Like the corn is pretty much like we have the staples that we stick with. But then like all the other vegetables, I try to put in a couple plantings of like some different things here just to get some variety.
Mm-hmm.
And we discuss all that, go through it all. And then she manages all the employees at the farm stand, scheduling. She's up there a whole bunch. When she's there, she pretty much always has the kids with her. Sometimes I take them with me, depending on what I'm doing. It's easier said than.
Absolutely. Yeah. So how is that working with your wife? I mean, do you enjoy that?
Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
It's hard. It's great working with her. And I couldn't imagine working with someone else,
Mm-hmm.
especially with the hours that we have to do. It kind of would be like limiting, like it would make it harder.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And does your dad help out at all? Is this more than just the core family? Does your dad ever pipe in? And
Yeah, so our family is all a huge help. But like as we said earlier, like my direct family is not farmers. My wife, her family, they have a little farm and they have a big garden center down in Cape May County.
Okay.
But they're busy with that, so it's not like they're up here. But yeah, our family helps out a ton as much as they can. My dad always laughs because like breaks every time he shows up, something breaks. and then I had to fix it. But no, we couldn't do it without all of our families.
Yeah,
My
I think
parents and Kelly's mom.
the farm aspect and doing it with your family is just something that is so unique and awesome. Like, you know, and then just to also get along with your family outside of work. So
Yeah.
like Chris, he works in the business. My sister Olivia, she does social media. My dad, he's still owner, and he was just out here planting
Yeah.
peas. My mom's involved, my wife, everyone's involved, and like tonight we're all gonna have dinner together.
Yeah.
So it's cool, and it takes like so many people to get it going, and like even for me, it's like when like my mom can watch my kids, allows my wife to do something, allows
Yep.
me to do
Yeah.
something, and so like even like the babysitters are a massive part of the
Yeah.
operation
Yeah.
because like what you're saying, there are things you can't do with a kid on your lap.
Yeah. And so Kelly does like all of our paperwork and bookwork too, which that's a massive undertaking. And when you're trying to do that with 2 kids, it's like
Yeah.
it's wild. So like the same thing, like when my parents can help watch.
Yeah. And I think there's some, I when I was a teacher, I would, go to West Hampton to teach, which was, 15-minute commute. But I think there's something to be said for having your kids around and constantly seeing what it is you're actually doing. When I taught, they didn't know, I would tell them I taught kids how to read and write all day, right? But they had no concept of what was actually happening. But now that I'm working here, they're out, they see things, they understand, and they're constantly learning things too,
Yeah.
whether they know it or not. So it's it's a special way of living that I've come to really appreciate, and it's neat that
Yeah.
your 2 kiddos are seeing it too.
So does your kid's interested in farming? Your
Oh,
son?
yeah. So my son, all winter long, because last year it was super dry. So like I would take him with me to move we use the hard hose reels to irrigate, which are like big sprinklers, have a hose. You have to move them around the farm, pull them out. It's a lot of work. But I would take my son with me all the time, and so like all winter long, all he would say is, "Daddy, move sprinklers, move sprinklers, move sprinklers." Like that was fun. So like,
That's
and I
awesome.
got him a toy sprinkler, and he's got like pipes all through the house. But now every morning he's like, work all day. Like he just wants to
Work all day.
and work all day. It's so funny.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like to, piggyback on what Chris was saying, like your kids being able to see you working, I think really helps them understand like the value of a dollar and see like, okay, I have this because my dad's doing this. And I knew when I was growing up, my dad would be working crazy hours. I'd see him out in the field. So like and now being a dad myself, like I just have so much respect for how my parents chose to raise us, because it wasn't always easy. My dad missed out on a lot of stuff like sports games, stuff like that. He made it to things he could, but I could see directly why he wasn't there. Like what Chris is saying, like, if your parent works somewhere and you can't see them work and you're like, oh, you can't come to my baseball game. They tell you why they can't, but it's another thing being able to see it. Like I come home and like, oh, there's my dad. He's planting sweet corn or something. Like, and now like what I was saying earlier, it took me a long time to realize that and put like a true value to that, especially now that I have kids. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is sweet. And hopefully it doesn't take them 30 years to figure out how sweet it is. But if it does, it does. So we'll see. So talk to us more about like your road stand, how long you guys have been there, the challenges of it, stuff like that.
Yeah, so we've been there for 6 years now.
Okay. And it was there for quite a while before you were there too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you know how long the stand's been in that general location?
No, we were trying to figure it out the other day actually, because before us there was someone else, and then there was someone else before. Like it's changed hands a bunch. That location's changed hands a bunch.
So what's your favorite thing about the market?
It's kind of fun to interact with customers. Sometimes not, but usually it is. People are usually very interested to learn about farming and like what actually goes into farming and producing a crop. And I love when people ask me questions about it.
Yeah,
I like
absolutely.
to talk about it.
Yeah, that's cool. Do you spend a lot of time at your stand yourself, or is it mainly like your wife? And I know you run the corn back and forth, right?
Yeah, I'm up there a lot. I mean, I'm typically not there for like working there. I'm usually bringing stuff there or up there doing one thing or the other. Um,
That's cool. Yeah, it's a pretty unique setup you guys have. Because how far is your farm from the Eckert corn stand?
5 miles probably.
5 miles.
Yeah.
So how? Okay, so talk us through picking the sweet corn. How does it go from the stalk to the stand?
All right, so I have a machine that picks it. Last year we upgraded machines, and that was a big learning curve. But pick it onto a wagon, and then I take it up there, and as we need more, I'll just pick more. Every day I just pick new corn. We don't ever like bag it or really do anything. And then the people that work up there, they sort it. Because when you put the machine through the field, you're gonna pick
Picks everything. Yeah.
So you get some years in it.
Yeah, so one of the really neat things is different machines on the farm. So how does this picker actually work? Does it cut the stalk and then ear it, or?
Yeah, it cuts the stalk, and then it actually lifts the stalk away from the ground as it cuts it, and then it peels the ear off as it moves the stalk.
Oh man, that's crazy.
Yeah. So here we pick our corn by hand, which in this day and age, it sounds crazy. And
Yeah.
some days I think a machine would be more easy to manage than
Yeah.
the corn picking crew, but that's a different topic. We'll save that for another
Yeah.
episode. But yeah, so there has to be a tremendous amount of parts flying around this machine to be able to do that.
Yeah, definitely. And conveyors to move everything, and yeah.
Yeah, so is it a conveyor up into a truck, then
Well,
that you drive down the
you
road?
could put a truck on it. We put a flat wagon behind it.
Gotcha, and you
Yeah.
just drop it on the wagon, and then do you tow that wagon to the?
right to the stand. Yeah.
How many
Wow.
different wagons do you have?
I, all of them? I don't know.
Well, like the wagons that
I
transport
have
corn.
two that I use.
Two main ones.
Yeah.
And there has to be one of the two has to be your favorite.
Yeah, well, my son and I built a new one last year, so that's the favorite because
There you go.
that thing will go straight as an hour, 60 miles an hour down
I've
the road.
I've seen you going down 206 before, and it's a slow ride. It's
Yeah.
got to be a little stressful.
You get used to it.
Yeah. And does corn like roll off the wagon?
I try not to.
Yeah, but I
People stopping on the side.
Yeah,
and picking
I
up
I've had
corn.
people come up and be like, I picked it up, I saw it fall off, I grabbed it.
yeah, like people learn your route and your timing, and there's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
all these cars waiting on the side of the
Yeah.
road. When I'm sure the
2000.
turn on to either the turn on to 206 or the one right out of your farm has to be where you lose
right out of
most
the
it.
farm one time, there was someone going by on a bicycle and a couple ears fell off, and I would see him in the mirror turn around
Oh,
and get off and pick
jeez.
him up.
There you go. That's pretty interesting getting it there, and then I guess so. Like on a busy day, you got to do more than one run.
Yeah, yep.
So how does that work as far as like the communication? Like who reaches out to you? How do you know when to go pick more corn?
So at the stand, like they know at the farm market when to call me and be like, all right, we're getting close. We try to give me like an hour like window to do it because and I'm pretty much always there, ready to like everything's always ready. Like when I'm done picking, I get it ready for the next time I have to pick. And they give me an hour. Sometimes it's if you have someone like a couple people show up and buy 10 dozen at a time, like 3 or 4 people in a row, like you're like, all right, we got to go fast. But usually we get a good feel for it. We kind of know like based on the weather and the day, like when it's going to be busier. So like on the days where I'm thinking it's going to be busier, I'll pick more or less depending on.
Yeah. So you get like, I mean, it's definitely very similar to us. Like we can almost tell like how many ears of corn we're going to sell on a certain day because you get like the same people that come back. I
Yeah,
feel like
yeah.
when it comes to sweet corn, like people are extremely loyal
Oh, yeah.
as to where they
Yeah.
get it, and like when they get it from a place they like it, they are back there all the time.
Yeah.
So I mean, you guys have customers like that there. So like how long have they been coming to you for corn? Have they been coming longer than you've been?
Longer than we've been there for sure.
How like the longest customer that's been coming to there? What do you think?
I don't know.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That's a long time.
Now, like, do you eat do you eat the stuff you grow?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It always start like in the beginning of the season. It's pretty funny because I'll go out in the field. People don't realize you can eat corn raw. I love being at the stand
delicious.
and telling people that, and I'm like, here, and I'll suck an ear and give it to them, and they'll eat it, and they're like, mind's blown. But like the first like week before we open, when the corn's like close, like I like it when it's not quite ready yet. I think it's better when it's a little younger. But like we'll just eat like a ton of it.
Yeah.
But then like by 3/4 of the way through the summer, I'm like, no more corn. I'm
Yeah,
done with this.
corn.
I don't want to see it.
I don't even think I get that far. I get like 1 week into it and I'm like, oh, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
Especially, like handling it in the market a lot and just talking about it all day with people. It's like when you get home, it's like, I would rather just eat pizza.
No more corn.
Yeah.
Yeah, carbs. Heavy carbs.
Yeah, that's funny. But,
So, Matt, I wanted to switch gears here. All right, so we talked a lot about kind of your learning on the farm and at different places. What as you were growing up, what were your thoughts on school? What was school like for you? Did you enjoy it? Did you dislike it? And how did that how was that different than how you learned kind of once you got into working?
Yeah, so I did not like school, and I pretty much was like I don't know, like we're learning all this stuff that like doesn't matter. Like some of the stuff definitely matters, but like I'm like, why don't we teach like things that matter? Like, and I still kind of feel that way. I do think that like I got to where I am because I went to school and like learned a bunch of things. I think that I don't know. If you ask my dad, oh man, I hated school when I was growing up.
Were your parents like always yelling at you to do your homework?
Yeah.
Same here. I feel like I'm definitely going to get a full dose of that when, especially my oldest, gets into school because he's stubborn. But I'll probably deserve it. So,
Yeah.
So what do you think? Was there anything, from even where'd you go to college again?
Washington.
Yeah, even from that, take that. Are there things that translated from your college years?
Yeah,
to
so
what you're doing now?
learning how to research things
Mhm.
has been like a huge help. I don't think I could have got it without being able to learn how to like research things. Learning how to write and communicate, I think, is a huge part of it.
Mhm.
But yeah.
And the
About
list
it.
stops there. Yeah. So what I guess why do you think that is? What's different about working? What's different about, being at these farms that you worked at prior, having your own farm, that does create more learning, more sustainable learning than what you did when you were younger?
Yeah, so like I always say to Kelly, like every day is a fire drill. Like there's always like you can make a plan as much as you want, but every day something's gonna happen and something's gonna change, and you need to learn and be able to like deal with that. And I think that like from working at other farms, like you really learn that, and like um yeah, like no matter where. I mean, that's the same with life, I feel like, but like no
Mhm.
matter what,
Yeah.
like things are always gonna go wrong, and you just have to learn to like roll with the punches and just keep going.
yeah, I think that's like super important. Like what you just said, as far as like that happens everywhere. I know like there was a point in my life where like I almost thought like the things that were happening to us here as a business was like unique
Yeah.
to us. And I think it took me a while to like, like step back. And it definitely, once I got older, I got wiser, whatever you want to call it. Like everyone deals with stuff and like I'm not unique to this situation
Yeah.
fire drill.
Yep.
And like once I like got okay with that, then then you stay more calmer in those situations and it's easier to make a decision.
Yeah.
It's not like a Johnson's Corner Farm unique situation. It's like, everyone's dealing with this stuff. Like, last year with the drought, everyone was dealing with it.
Yeah.
Actually, you were dealing with it worse than we were, which is crazy. I mean, So yeah, what's your farm like? Your home farm's like what? Probably 10, 15 miles from here.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
Yeah,
10.
south, and we would get all these pockets of rain, and I text you,
Yeah.
"Hey, it's raining here," and you're like, "Nope, it's
Yeah,
a
must
desert
be
out there."
nice.
Yeah, so I'm gonna check the weather now before
Yeah.
I start bragging about the rain, because you probably aren't getting it.
No, we've had enough rain for a while now.
Yeah, now we have, but that's the other thing about farmers. We complain when it rains
Yeah.
too much. We complain when it doesn't rain enough. And we just have to fight that. What you said it. You said something the other day. Was it grumpy farmer syndrome?
Oh yeah, grumpy
We got to
old
fight
farmer
it.
disease.
Yeah, it's chronic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the
you got to
symptoms
fight
showing up too early.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're way too young for that. But
So Matt, tell me, what always blows my mind about farmers is like the creativity, imagination. Like, you guys come up against an issue and, Gil and Eric are like, all right, let's do this. And I'm like, where did this idea come from? Like completely out of the blue, like
Yeah.
taking random objects and putting them together like mad scientists. So how, were you creative and imaginative as a kid, or is this something you kind of learned a little later? Or?
Probably both.
Yeah.
I feel like you have to think outside of the box to be a farmer. Like nothing's really cut and dry. Like you have to be able to figure out problems with what you have. You can't, when you have something go wrong, like you can't wait till, if it happens on a Friday night, like you can't wait till Monday to go get parts. Like you need to figure out how to fix this,
Yeah.
like no matter what. And yeah.
Do you have a favorite story of like a crazy rig you came up with, or crazy contraption or crazy fix that you were like, I did that?
I feel like that's every day. Every day is a crazy story.
what's the one fix of a machinery that just sticks out in your head when after you fix it, you like stood back and you're like, wow, I'm great.
I've like welded cast bearings back into place and then been able to run through things like, I don't know.
That's wild.
It's everything. But what's frustrating is like then in like 10 years, I'm going to be like, remember when I fixed that? I welded this thing all together and then it breaks again. And now I'm like, why didn't I fix that the right way?
Yeah, there's a lot of. I remember after my grandpa passed away, there would be fixes like something just like that
Yeah.
would pop. Like one of my grandpa's rigs would finally break, and you're like, "Oh man, Gramps, you really held this farm together with
Yeah.
duct tape at one point."
Baling
duct
wire,
tape,
duct
and
tape.
we would always find these like 6-inch long nails, like to hold a piece of trim in, and you're like, "What were you doing?" But no, those fixes are great because like. I mean, for me, it just reminds me of, I don't know, where I was at that point,
Yeah.
and hopefully my fixes do last 10 years, like you were saying. I mean, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah,
So.
there's something kind of neat about, you can kind of like tell the history of things as they move. Like here, one of the really funny things about the farm here is that you can kind of tell when things were built based on what type of screw is in there.
Yeah.
So like it's crazy, you see a square head and you're like, oh man. And then what was before the squares? What did Grandpa use?
I was like a Phillips head,
Phillips head,
probably.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it was Phillips head, that's at least 20 years old.
Yeah.
Square tips are like 10. And why they ever did away with the square tips screw, it blows my mind because they were
Yeah.
the best. And now we have the T25 and the
Yeah,
T20
yeah.
star bits.
I like those.
You're insane. I think they're
like
horrible.
the stars too.
I don't like them at all.
The worst is when you go to fix something though, and you only have the star, and then you're like, it's a
Yeah.
square.
Yeah, that's whenever I go to fix something, I always have a pocket full of drill bits because you never know. You never know what they're gonna be.
One thing I'm always interested in is like daily routines of farmers. So, do you have kind of like a set routine that you do in the morning or at night, or, are you kind of fly by the seat of your pants?
Yeah, I think it's different every day. It just depends on what's going on. Like right now, it's kind of, we're just getting out of being too wet to do anything. So like the past couple of days, I've just been like getting everything ready, like to be able to get in the field and do as much as we can as fast as we can. I have like all this stuff ready to plant and just like
prepping.
Yeah, you're just waiting to go. I know the rain's kind of been affecting us as far as like fruit trees and disease and stuff
Yeah.
like that. We've just been have to, be on top of it way more than we have in the past. But hopefully we got some dry weather coming at us and we can get after it.
Yeah. So is there anything else you want people to know about your farm stand, about farming?
I think the biggest thing is just like if you like seeing farms around is supporting your local farmers and and actually finding out who the farmers are and making that connection. I feel like so many farmers enjoy having the connection with the consumer, and I feel like there's not a lot of us out there, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's hard.
Yeah, it's one of those things like, it's, New Jersey being as populated as it is great in one aspect because it gives us a lot of customers, and then the other side, it gives us, a lot of people to work around. So, I think what you're saying as far as getting to know your farmers is awesome. Put like a face to the people that are out there doing it, and yeah, supporting local, I think is like, I think it's one of those things that like it's over like romanticized in a way, what we were talking about earlier. Like I don't know. When I hear say, oh, shop local, it kind of like shiver a little bit. I'm like, it's just talked about too much. And I feel like people like talking about it, and it's just like, stop talking about it and just go do it. Like, wherever it is you live, the farmer down the road from you, it is a tremendous amount of work to get that produce there. So, even if it's a little out and like inconvenient to go there, like do it. Because there's a family behind that. Like you, your wife, your kids, you guys are behind the product you have at your road stand. And, people get in these habits of like going to the grocery store, which, I understand why people do that, or, getting your produce from different, outlets that may not be local. But I think, getting in touch with the people that are growing the produce in your community, because there's, especially New Jersey, there's definitely someone in your community that's growing what you want. Yeah. And you just got to get out there and find it. So,
yeah, I think part of that dislocation is, the shop local vibe is almost, people shop local, but then they don't know who they're shopping locally from, right? So it's almost like you got to, shop Matt Stiles, right? Shop Eckert's corn stand. So, it's interesting. Yeah, like Matt said, get out there, talk to the farmer, right? Get to actually know who's there, because there's families behind, all these operations.
Yeah, and then you get into the whole conversation of like, what is local? Like people are like, oh, if it's grown within 30 miles of the state border, it's local. Well, like some, the northernmost part of New Jersey, 30 miles past that is like, I don't know, like hours from here. So, don't like come up with your own definition of local. Like for me, I think local is like within 5 minutes of your house. Yeah, that's local.
I always say local is where you can ride your bike to.
There you go. Yeah. I don't know if you want anyone riding their bike down Route 70 though.
Yeah. But like you could.
Yeah, you could. You definitely could do it.
That distance is like.
Make sure you have a parent or guardian with you when you're driving down. But no, I think it's super important, and it's just like one of those like buzzwords that like, I do get frustrated with, because I'm like, it's just so overdone. And like, I think it dilutes the word. And then people are like, wait, what is local? And, it's one that you hear it so many times. And then you're like, you're allowing people to put their own, like a definition on it for you. And it's like, wait a second here, and I think a lot of that has to do with like the bigger box chains trying to compete with us. And, they try to come up with these definitions of local, but, and it really is the consumers really, the customer, they're in control of the situation. So, there's more of us out there, I think, than people realize. Yeah. But, there's probably more people leaving the industry than coming in. Definitely. But hopefully, as they hear us talk about it, I would love for people, to get into it. And it's very intimidating, but does not mean it's not worth it. So, all right, Matt, you want to just say it into the mic? Just say, hi, I'm Matt Stiles. Come see me out at the stand. Something like that. Like a little like sales pitch,
Little elevator
like
pitch.
Say, hi, I'm Matt Stiles from Eckert's corn stand. No? All right. All right, guys, this is Matt Stiles from Eckert's corn stand. Go support him. Go buy his corn. I may still think my corn's better, but if you're not buying it from me, you better buy it from him. All right.
Awesome. Thanks for coming out, Matt. Thanks for joining us. Our very first
tap this button.
episode.
Tap that button right
there.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up our very first episode of Johnson's Corner Farmcast with Matt Stiles, I just want to take a minute and go through a few of the major takeaways from our discussion. First thing is Matt's broad experience. He didn't just jump in and purchase Eckert's farm market. He had experience with different farmers, different systems, different crops that then allowed him to take that leap and purchase his own corn stand. Second is this is a family operation. You have 3 generations all working toward one goal. You have Matt's parents helping out. You have Matt running the farm, his wife running the market, and then their kids learning all this as they're going through it. And lastly is Matt's bias toward action. And I just love this about farmers. It's kind of like all the creativity sort of like sits behind the scenes that then allows them when circumstances change just to take action immediately. Right? So when something breaks, right? When weather changes, when any circumstances change, they always have this initial bias toward action. So I just love that about Matt. I love the family operation. I love this conversation. I hope you join us on the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you guys soon.